be joined now by Michigan offensive coordinator Josh Gattis. And I was looking forward to this just because, as you guys know, I'm a former position coach. And being that Coach Gattis is a guy that I really looked up to, just sitting here talking to him now is really a pleasure. So I want to welcome in now Coach Gattis. How you doing, Coach?
Doing great, Jordan. Thanks for having me on here, and I look forward to kind of catching up with you on the podcast.
No problem. Thanks for joining me. Like I said, it's a pleasure, but times are just crazy right now throughout the nation. You guys don't really know what's going on. I know there was a conference-only schedule that was released for a lot of conferences around the country, but I just want to talk about the pandemic a little bit. You being in such a high-power position, how are you guys handling COVID-19 and some adjustments you've had to make along the way?
We've definitely, faced some challenging times, and I think just not only for our sport and the game of football, but just in America. I think, we battled through adversity, obviously still facing adversity now. And we really don't know, obviously the health and welfare of people is the most important thing over top of any type of sport or education from that standpoint. It's how can we, battle this pandemic and come out, as healthy as possible for all Americans. But, our kids have handled it in the best way that they possibly could. I can't lie and say that, they aren't anxious to have a season, but there's also a lot of anxiety, as far as concern of what the season may look like, how the season may operate. So, we've left those decisions up to the professionals at hand. All the doctors, the medical professions. Our school president, athletic director, and and just trusting that everyone's going to make the best decision, not only for the sport of football or for athletics itself, but for the student athletes, for everyone involved in America.
Absolutely. And there's just so much going on right now. It's kind of like you just have to play everything by ear, but really, really happy to have you on once again. Just wanted to keep mentioning that. But the main topics for today, I want to get into receiver play a little bit, just because that's the area that you really have gained your expertise in. And even though you played on the other side of the football during your career, when you were at Wake Forest, I know you've had a chance to be an NFL draft pick, but I want to back up a little bit and just talk about your career journey and how you became interested in football and just some things that you've learned along the way.
Yeah, football was growing up, I was raised by my mom and, single parent home, and she raised my brother, my sister, myself. And, she really just showed sacrifice and determination and work ethic. And through that, it taught me a lot about, how to apply that into sports. Sports was, my escape, from growing up facing adversity. And so, for me, the coaches that I had around me at the high school level, when I went to Northern Durham High School back in Durham, North Carolina, they saw something in me, and they helped guide me through high school process and really kept steering me in the right direction that led me to develop an appreciation for sports. And then obviously getting the opportunity to go to Wake Forest and play under Jim Grove and have a bunch of coaches there that made a tremendous impact in me, including my defensive coordinator at the time, was Dean Hood, who was my position coach. And so, going through that experience and really, having a lot of men that I looked up to there, at Wake Forest University, really helped shape, my next career that I'm currently in now and wanting to get into coaching, just seeing the impact that those guys had in me, shaping me not only as a person, but as a player. That grew an appreciation for me for what we do now. And so just having the ability to impact the lives of these young men and, make them whole, really kind of take them from, young adults to really grow them into young men, it is really my passion and my purpose.
And it's funny that you say Durham, North Carolina. We actually have a Durham connection. I actually played quarterback at North Carolina Central University. And I'm pretty sure you're very fond of that. So
really, that's it. My mom graduated from North Carolina Central, so we always talk about Eagle pride there.
Oh yeah, absolutely, all day long. But I just want to stay on topic here and just some advice that you have for young coaches. And I've been in a situation before where I was a graduate assistant, and we both know there's a lot of things and a lot of duties and a lot of tasks that you have that are assigned to you. But what is the biggest piece of advice that you have for young coaches out there?
I think the biggest piece that I would say, early on, I kind of fall into three things. I would say, first and foremost, is learn as much as possible. Go in, with open ears and open heart. and an open mind. Go in and try to learn as much as possible about the game. Learn how to do your job first and foremost before you learn how to do anyone else's job. Be the best assistant that you can possibly be. And your job, obviously, as any assistant, is to eliminate issues, whether that's eliminating issues off the head coach's plate, whether that's eliminating issues off your coordinator's plate. But if you're going in to be a graduate assistant, eliminate things for all the coaches that you can help assist. But because by doing that, it's going to not only make your job easier, it's going to make their job easier, but it's also going to stand out. And people appreciate, the loyalty that's shown when you're focused on being the best that you can possibly be to help others. And then the third thing is learn to master your craft. Obviously, as you start off in your career, you got your hands in a lot of things, whether it's diagramming plays or, drawing cards. But start to study the little intricate details of whatever position that you're assigned to, because, eventually as your career accelerates and you start heading down that path as an assistant coach, you want to be the best at whatever your focus is. If that's tight ends, if that's defensive backs, just be the best at what you can possibly be. Control the things that you can control, and that'll help outline your future as you continue to move forward in this profession.
Really good advice there, Coach, and I really appreciate you for sharing that, just because I have a lot that actually reach out to me, and I really share the same sentiment, is that it's a grind. That's what everybody knows, and you just have to stay true to your craft and just be a sponge and learn as much as you can. But I want to get into receiver play now. This is considered your baby. This is your expertise now, and even though you're over the entire operation, I know when you're at practice, you still have a eagle's eye view on that receiver position, just because this is what you grew up learning for the most part. And you have the opportunity to coach some really good ones, going back to your days at Vanderbilt with Jordan Matthews, your days at Alabama, or I should say with Penn State with Chris Godwin, who has gone on to have a lot of success with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And now with Alabama, we know the big four that's there, and Jerry Jeudy and Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, and all those other guys that have come out from there. You've had an opportunity to coach all of them. So just what is the biggest thing that you look for at the wide receiver position?
I think it's a number of different traits. First and foremost, I'm a big mentality guy. I want to surround myself with guys that want to be great. I take tremendous pride in some of the accolades of some of the receivers that I've coached, but those accolades are a reflection of their mentality. Let alone I like to consider very little of what I do, and more so driving the mentality of what they do. In order to be great, you got to have an attitude and a mindset to be great. I remember having a conversation with guys, and I lay it out early on, even in the recruiting process. What are your goals? What do you want to accomplish, at the collegiate level? Is it, you want to be all Big Ten? Is it you want to be all American? Is it, do you want to be a Biletnikoff winner? If you answer those questions in that order, then it's my job to hold you accountable to reach those goals. And I want your goals just as much as you want your goals. And if you don't answer those questions, if those things aren't, of your interest, we probably don't align well. So, I think it's the attitude first and foremost of guys that want to be great, because guys that want to be great are going to allow you to coach them. And Jordan, my guys will always tell you, and I coach my guys here hard, and I've coached all my receivers hard, kind of, everywhere I've been. But it's a level of accountability that I hold them to. Those guys have always expressed, their goals and dreams and admirations, and it's my job to help get them to where they need to get to. And oftentimes we don't appreciate, or we don't realize, how tough a coach or critical, he's coaching all the little details. He's on me about this. We don't appreciate those things until afterward. But it's often very rewarding for me to, I'll get messages from some of my former guys, or, they'll send a jersey and it's on the wall and they'll write, "Coach, thank you for staying on me for this or that," or, all the little things. And, that's who my coach was. That's who Dean Hood was for me. When my senior year at Wake Forest, I was getting coached harder than the freshmen. And so, I believe in just coaching everybody fairly, being very focused on the details. I think that matter, the fundamentals and details. And what I always tell our guys is, fundamental plays win games, but fundamentals win plays. And so, we're going to rely back on our fundamentals and technique, and just work on that until we get tired of doing it.
And it's really interesting you say that. And I wanted to ask you this as well. You've been at a ton of blue blood programs, whether it's Penn State, Alabama, and all these others now at Michigan. You guys get these constant 4- and 5-star recruits. And just how are you able to get the best out of them every single day when you're on the field?
I think it's drive and determination. First, it starts, with recruiting the right type of players. Having the right type of mindset, in your room. And to me, one thing that I've taken tremendous pride on, and I think, I could say honestly, throughout all of, my careers, um, I'm a little bit different than some coaches. I believe in coaching everyone equally and fair. Some coaches, there may be a tier system. Well, the great player gets coached this way. Maybe a walk-on gets coached this way. I don't believe in that. I coach our starters just as much as I coach our backups. I coach our, freshmen hard, just as hard as I coach our starters. And so to me, that builds a level of trust in the room. And when you've got a level of trust, and when we talk about trust, we're talking about player-to-player trust. We're talking about player-to-coach trust, coach-to-player trust, and ultimately, player to our system trust, whether that's the fundamentals and technique or that's the offensive system that we're in, having those players trust that I'm going to give them the best technique and details possible. And there's times where, we're going to, say, hey, look, coach, can we do things a certain way? And, one of the things I've had the privilege of is learning a lot from my players because of the relationships that I've had and the dialogues. There's times where, I've learned things, as far as technique and detail from them, and playing receiver, it's kind of a trial and error kind of deal where you've got to kind of, you've got to have some creativity to be able to implement some new ideas and new ways to do things. But then there's some base core fundamental aspects that you really got to rely on at all times. And so, I think it's just having that trust that, that it's my job to drive those guys in the right direction and take them to reach their goals. And so, when when you're able to meet there halfway in the middle and all pull the rope in the right direction, you can accomplish a lot of things successfully.
It's really good stuff there, Coach. And, we've been texting back and forth here and there, and I have so many questions for you. But like I said, you've coached so many different guys in many shapes and sizes. But I think something that's always interesting about wide receivers and then just putting together a core is that it's kind of like a basketball team. You have your point guard, you have your bigger guys, your power forwards, your centers, and you've had the privilege of coaching many different shapes and sizes. But as a play caller, why is it so important to put guys in these situations where they can succeed?
Yeah, I think you use the right analogy. It's like having a toolbox. If you've got the same tool in the toolbox, eventually you're going to show up on the job and not be able to get the job done because you're going to need something else. And so, it's our job as coaches to develop that toolbox, put all the different things we need necessary to be able to accomplish anything in any task at hand. And game plans change. The way you attack opponents, the way, each week, the game plan can be different. It can be, from a receiver standpoint, you can have a receiver get 8 catches one week and another receiver catch, 7 balls another week. And you've got to have the flexibility in that room as well as the talent to be able to disperse the ball around. And that's one of the things that we talk about as far as being balanced. Balance for us is not necessarily run pass. It's balance for us is also how many guys touch the football. And when we have the ability to develop that room, that skill position, is whether it's receivers, tight ends, running backs, and force the defense to have to defend all 5 eligible skill players, we feel like, as well as sideline to sideline and every blade of grass that's on the field, we feel like we can put stress and apply stress to an opposing team's defense and hold them accountable.
And whether it's Jerry Jeudy or Henry Ruggs III or Chris Godwin, or I think you guys have a really good one now on Nico Collins, who I'm very high on. What is one trait that all of those guys have in common that you've seen during your time coaching?
Yeah, like I said, I would fall back on that mindset and mentality, the willingness and want to be great. Those guys. Speaking specifically of Nico, Nico's got Nico could have left last year and been, possibly a second or a late first round pick in my opinion. But he chose to come back because he felt like there was things that he wanted to work on. He didn't have, a spring last year to work on those things because he was recovering from an injury. And so, when you got guys that want to be great, that they're willing to sacrifice even leaving early or sacrifice some of the smallest little things in life that they may want, that says a lot about them. But, when you're talking about the wide receiver skill set, I've been blessed to, coach tall, long, fast, everything. I think, even going back to the first receiver I had was a kid named Jordan White, who was probably, one of the, unknown best receivers I've ever coached. He was consensus All-American at Western Michigan, and he really kind of taught me a lot, learning from him going in. But I think, obviously they've got to have great, the three skill sets that I really truly base it on is they got to have great body control, great ball skills, and great balance. And I think when you've got those three things, balance, body control, and ball skills, you've got all the recipes needed to play the receiver position at a high level, because those three things matter the most.
And then another one I wanted to add, I really like those three that you mentioned: separation and the ability to naturally create separation. Do you think that's a very important trait at the position?
Absolutely. It's that's the number one goal.
Yeah.
That's the number one goal for a receiver, is to create separation. And obviously, separation comes in a number of different forms. Obviously, there's vertical separation where you're talking about just straight linear speed. But any type of lateral separation is really going to fall back to developing the craft. How well do you transition in and out of cuts? The ability to create separation. But I think another key that's really big for receivers is to maintain separation. Oftentimes, you see separation being able to be created, but then defenders are able to close the gap. And a lot of that deals with, your top of the route, whatever footwork or whatever top of the route shake that we like to call it, that you're using to not only create that separation, but also maintain that separation. So separation is key. I think, for a lot of the audience or the common eye, they think, separation has got to come in the form of 5 yards or 4 feet. That's not always the case at the receiver position. The more talented defensive backs come, separation is the ability to create open windows and lanes for the quarterback to be able to deliver the ball. So sometimes that may be 1 foot difference, but that's all you need, because any type of separation to allow you to get a clean catch is critical to the success of the offense.
It's really good stuff there. Now I want to transition a little bit and talk about culture and team building, and then I'll let you get out of here. So you've been around fantastic coaches, some of the best in the country, and Coach Saban at Alabama. Now you're with a great one, and Coach Harbaugh at Michigan. So just talk about some of the things culture-wise, as team building-wise, I should say, that you've seen or taken the most from them.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, and I've always tried to learn a lot of things, throughout my career. Each year, I always continue to learn. And one of the things that I've really changed on my mindset, and I'm glad you mentioned it, I've learned a lot about culture. I always thought culture is, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, what you want your team to look like. I was listening to a presentation this offseason, I got a chance to listen to Mike Vrabel, the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, and he explained what culture, his definition of culture, and it was fascinating for me, because his definition of culture was how you look in your worst moment. Culture is who you are when adversity strikes, and that stuck with me, because culture to me was something I was always trying to inject into a team, something I was always trying to build by confidence. And the way he explained it is, everyone has great culture when you're winning. Everyone has great culture. Everyone's happy, everyone's excited. You're making plays, you're getting the football. You always have great culture. But what do you look like when adversity strikes? And that made me reflect upon the culture that, Coach Harbaugh has built here. And, we faced adversity early in the year last year, taking over an offense. And, we experienced a lot of adversity as far as turnovers and fumbling the ball. And our kids, they didn't quit. There was a lot of, national media that was criticizing, and they didn't listen to it. They didn't fall victim, to the public opinion, and they kept battling. And then, eventually it all gelled together. And I remember Coach Harbaugh going in front of the media constantly saying, hey, we're this close. And I remember media was like, oh, no, you're not. No, you're not. And it was our kids. It was our culture that was brewing. And that really made me reflect a lot on, my true definition of what culture is, and, how we've been able to establish such a great culture here at the University of Michigan. And I think that's one of the things that are very important. All the places that I've been fortunate to be, and, some of the great head coaches that I've learned from, I think culture is one of the things up as top, as well as consistency, and being able to align everyone in your organization and be able to drive the same message in the right direction and in the same direction as you.
That's really interesting, just because everybody likes to create culture, and they say, I have this, this, and this aligned. But I really like the way Coach Vrabel put it, and then the way that you put it as well. It's just how you are in the most adverse moments, just because that's really when you find out what type of football team that you have. And it's all sunshine and roses when you go up 21-0. And in the first quarter, and you end up blowing.
That's right.
And when you need a touchdown, you're down 6, and somebody's got to make a play. You're going to go to your best player. You find out what type of team that you have. So really, really glad that you shared that type of information. And last question, then I'll let you get out of here. You had an opportunity to participate in the Quarterback Coaching Summit a couple of weeks ago. Even though it was virtual this year, it was a little bit different. So I just want you to share a little bit of insight about that. And what was your biggest takeaway from some of the speakers that you were fortunate enough to listen to?
Yeah, this was my second year, and I was very fortunate to be a part of it. And it is a phenomenal seminar. And I think, in fact, this year, with it being virtually, even had a greater impact because we were able to, have some different voices, NFL team owners, obviously the commissioner being a part of it, Roger Goodell. And I don't know if we would have had those same influences had it been in Atlanta where it was last year. And obviously a ton of head coaches. I think there was maybe 27 teams being represented, whether it was general managers, different coaches. But it's a tremendous event put on by Doug Williams, Shaq Harris, and Jimmy Ray, and Black coaches, or the Black Players, Black Coaches Hall of Fame, and Black Players Hall of Fame, as well as with the NFL. I think it is a tremendous opportunity to just continue to gain knowledge. Obviously, it's centered and focused on, minority coaches on the offensive side of the football. And, I think that the key quote that, that I really took away as we get on there and we listen to so many coaches present, how, knowledgeable they are and how many great coaches there are out there. And, there's not a shortage of minority coaches, in the college football level. Or at the NFL level that are ready to lead and be successful, whether that be in as coordinators and head coaches. Mr. Williams said it best. We just got to open up the valve. It's just like the water turns on when you turn the knob. Water's going to come out of it. And so there's no shortage of talented, qualified coaches. Whether that's coaching the quarterback position, whether that's being an offensive coordinator. We just got to get guys the right opportunities. And I think that's something that we've been able to address through these times. Obviously, having dialogue has helped, and I think what you've seen through the NFL and some of the things that they've done, as well as in colleges, we're seeing more and more people engage in this dialogue. So hopefully, this is something over time we're not obviously going to be able to fix just tomorrow, but over time we're going to be able to continue to address it and give some of the guys the right opportunities that they deserve. And so, I was fortunate to be a part of it. I think it's a tremendous event and a tremendous summit, and I look forward to continue to try to make an impact in the community and in this coaching profession to represent many minorities that have opportunities.
Definitely. It's definitely on my bucket list of something that I want to go to, especially next year. So that's definitely somewhere we probably can meet in person for the first time. I'll make sure to introduce myself.
It's a must attend. It's a must attend.
Absolutely. And I just want to thank you once again for joining the Reid Option podcast. I'm sure if you guys are able to play this year and you guys run a real nice creative concept, I'll be sure to text you to say, man, what was that? Just let me know what that was.
I appreciate it, man. It's been a joy to get on here and obviously, be a part of the podcast. And anytime you need me, always there.
No problem. Thanks again, Coach.
Thank you.